Good morning, and thank you for joining us. Our top story, of course, the Israeli Air Force struck 5 targets in the Gaza Strip overnight in retaliation for 2 rocket attacks that were launched against southern Israel earlier that day, one of which was intercepted by the Iron Dome missile defense system. 14 rockets have been launched since the 3 teenage boys were kidnapped more than a week ago. And despite extensive search, there is still no sign of life. Earlier this morning, Palestinian sources reported that a teenage boy was killed in clashes with the IDF in the West Bank. For more on this ongoing story, we're joined in studio by I-24 News senior Middle East analyst Ali Waqid. Good morning, Ali. And also by I-24 News diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev. Good morning, Tal.
Good morning.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Netanyahu has called on Palestinian President Abbas to break his pact with, quote, the murderous terror organization Hamas. The next report summarizes the diplomatic implications of the operation, and we'll continue from there.
Just 1 week ago, the Israeli Prime Minister was in the midst of a political crisis in his Likud party after a failed attempt to meddle with the country's presidential race. 7 days into the Israeli teenager kidnapping crisis, that is long forgotten. Netanyahu has adopted national crisis mode.
We will do whatever needs to be done to protect our people, our citizens, our children, and our teenagers from the scourge of terrorism.
Since last Thursday, the Israeli Prime Minister has been engaging in ongoing consultations and security briefings, quickly adopting the role of the responsible adult. At first, he placed the responsibility for the abduction on the Palestinian Authority, but he gradually shifted focus, and now he's pointing straight at Hamas. The Israeli operation, aimed at collecting intelligence to locate the abducted teens, gradually turned into the largest Israeli military operation in the West Bank in recent years and into a widespread campaign against the Hamas infrastructure.
This event will not pass by without the Hamas paying a heavy price.
Alongside the military path, Jerusalem is hoping to make a case against Abbas's alliance with Hamas and rally international support to pressure Abbas to bring down the unity government sworn in just 2 weeks ago.
Those who perpetrated this act want to destroy us. The 3 young men are human beings just like us and must be returned to their families.
For the first time in ages, Netanyahu and Abbas share a common enemy, and Abbas too is emerging as a responsible adult. He initiated a call to Netanyahu offering his assistance, issued an official condemnation, and topped it off with a determined statement calling to refrain from violence. While Hamas celebrates the abduction, stirring for an uprising, the Palestinian Authority's security forces are working with Israel to investigate the kidnapping. Netanyahu may have responded coldly to Abbas's expression of solidarity, but in the world, he is definitely gaining points.
We were encouraged by President Abbas's strong statement to the Arab and Islamic foreign ministers.
Israelis around the world are in hopeful prayer for the teenager's return, but the end of Operation Brother's Keeper is nowhere in sight. As it continues, more and more questions will arise on the benefit of the actions, as well as the leadership of Netanyahu and Abbas, and the future they're planning for their people.
So, Tal, of course, we're more than a week after the search started, and Netanyahu is basically in the same position that he was a week ago. Nothing much has changed diplomatically.
Well, yes, nothing much has changed diplomatically. At this point, the international community is keeping a very low tone. It's either it's not really interested with what's going on here, or it's not occupied. It's over-occupied with other issues. But the international community, for a week, we gave Netanyahu a total freedom of access and movement in the West Bank. On the other diplomatic level, against Ramallah, then something has changed because, as we noted, he started out pointing to Abbas as responsible. That message has been undergraded over the days. It's true, yesterday he called Abbas to break up the unity government, and that was his main demand in the latest statement. But in any case, it is clear that he is focusing on one enemy, and that is Hamas. And in many cases, Abbas overrided him with being extra moderate, extra offering assistance, extra open to assisting. Right. And in the international arena, I think Abbas gained some points this week. Netanyahu probably stayed at the same place.
But what Netanyahu's comments are doing, perhaps not internationally doing so well, but within the Palestinian Authority, they are breaking up, or at least raising tensions between Fatah and Hamas. And of course, we're hearing Hamas leaders from abroad, from outside of the West Bank, weighing in on the ordeal as well now.
Well, I don't think that Netanyahu declarations are putting tension, are throwing tension into the political arena in the West Bank. It's the kidnapping itself. Mm-hmm. It's the operation led by probably Hamas, but not everybody is sure that Hamas is standing behind. The Palestinian people hope that the reconciliation between Hamas and Fatah will open a new era, an era where the Palestinian are going towards stability, political stability, financial stability. The Palestinians were even ready to pay the price of the Israeli sanctions. But when it comes to such an operation, the Palestinians feel that this tension can have huge impact over their life, especially their economic daily life, which they are not ready. Now, as I said before, this is at the short term, Yael. At the long term, Hamas will gain points if this operation continues, if this operation maintains, because we know that, one, this operation continues without finding the three kids, there will be a negotiation over returning them. Negotiations, which this price or that price, but there will be negotiations. And the Palestinian there is a unanimity between those who are against the kidnapping and those who are with the kidnapping. We want to see the prisoners released. And Hamas will focus on that. Point. And Abbas, that is looked now in the international community as moderate, is now suffering from a criticism from all the spectrum of the Palestinian political organizations. And if this coming weeks will pass without a breakthrough in finding the three guys, Hamas will be back a key player.
And of course, we're also looking at the sporadic incidents that this morning we're hearing from Palestinian sources that a teenage boy was killed in clashes. These are incidents that, of course, can spiral the situation much more out of control, and Abbas won't have control over that.
Absolutely. Off air, I was talking with Tal about the coming days. The coming days, we are at the Ramadan will start, the month of fasting, plus students will be out of schools, clashes will become much more often and much more serious, and I think there is a challenge for the Israeli security services to try to progress in this operation by the coming days, because as long as this operation maintains, tension will be the dominant element in the region, and Abbas will not be able to stand anymore against the kidnapping. He will find himself obliged to fight against the Israeli operation.
And in Tala, in Israel, of course, we're hearing there's two different operations really going on here. There's one to bring back the boys, and there's one, as Ali is saying, is to dismantle the Hamas. We're hearing the defense minister speak quite often to the press, but with not really giving what's the end objective. What are we actually going into the West Bank and trying to do? Do you think this also can spiral out of control?
Well, I think every day that goes by into this, with this operation continuing, the risk gets bigger, because as you can see at the beginning of the operation, every night you had dozens of arrests. Now we're hearing much lesser. The numbers are getting smaller and smaller, which means they're running out of targets.
Yeah, but the quality of the targets is changing, like having the house of Salah al-Aruri, whom the IDF is accusing to be behind this kidnapping, to demolish the house, plus the killing of the kid, plus, and this is important, taking control over charity associations that belong to the Hamas, means that the Israeli, as Tal said, no more military targets of Hamas, plus now attacking the civil infrastructure of Hamas. And the question is, once you finish with the civil infrastructure, and you can finish it within 2-3 days, what's next?
And that's a question, what's next? And that's what many people are asking inside the defense establishment, asking what is next. And there is a lack of the Israeli government is not well known for its long strategic plans. But Netanyahu is a very careful and cautious leader, especially when we're talking about combat, when we're talking about war, when we're talking about military operations. So if I would have to guess, it'll stay a very restrained operation, but at some point, more and more questions will be coming up. And inside the Israeli society, not only in the international community, in the Israeli society, he's had a week of quiet, no opposition, nobody stopping, nobody asking questions. But as time goes by and the Israeli government and army are yet to even present any evidence linking between Hamas and the abduction, they're losing points, and they cannot let this go by too long. So the daily statements, or they're not, so the daily statements, the regular statements from the Prime Minister and the Defense Minister is because they do understand they're not giving much to the public,
Right.
they're not giving a lot of answers, and that's their way to try,
to prolong the operation.
Plus, I want to mention one more detail, which is very important. Dozens of the Palestinian prisoners who are now in hunger strike, dozens of them are in Israeli hospitals. Israel have no interest that one of them will be dead will be dead because of this strike. And in case if something happened to one of the prisoners, everything will be out of control, and Hamas is betting on this, that this strike will succeed, that there will be a victim because of this strike, and then they can justify the kidnapping. You see the situation of our prisoners. We made this kidnapping because of the strike and because of the prisoners.
And another thing that could happen is this Sunday, a few days ago, Israel approved another settlement expansion construction plan, and this Sunday the government is going to allocate millions of shekels to the settlements following the abduction. And this, of course, it's
Sends
like a poof moment.
Yeah.
This is a poof moment which can bring the international community to be against Israel and to stop this immediate support to the operation. So it's very delicate, and the Israeli government again is moving to strengthen the settlements, and this is a bad message to the Palestinians and to the international community.
Indeed. Let's take a look at what Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said last evening in one of those daily updates that we were talking about.
We're doing everything in our power to bring back our 3 kidnapped teenagers. They were kidnapped by Hamas. We had no doubt of that. It's absolutely certain. Hamas repeatedly is called for the kidnap and murder of Israeli citizens. It is an organization that is designated as a terror organization by many countries, and it is a terror organization that is committed to Israel's destruction. I expect President Abbas to dissolve the union with this murderous terrorist organization. I think that's important for our common future. Thank you.
Ali, of course, Abu Mazen, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas's comments over the last week have been consistent. They're consistently committed to ending, finding these kidnapped boys. And from Israel, he's not getting a warm welcome for these comments, although perhaps in the United States he's awarded with them.
Of course. And, Yael, we have in Israel a campaign on the social media, on the other platforms of bring back the boys.
Right.
Well, in the Palestinian society, there is a similar parallel campaign, but on the opposite. One that is blessing the kidnapping, and second, every day there are rallies and public meetings calling to release the prisoners and as solidarity with the hunger strike of the prisoners. So the declarations of Abu Mazen came when the public mood was different, totally at the other side of its declaration. The Palestinian street, even though he is not, he didn't accept the kidnapping as an operation, but he is supporting the act, and this is what I think is very significant in Abu Mazen. Abu Mazen said, "I am the leader. You are with the kidnapping. The kidnapping. I, as a leader, I'm telling you that it is going against the Palestinian interest, and you need to see that even the Palestinian movements that are in coalition with the PLO, like the PFLP and the FIDA and other, all of them condemned Abu Mazen declarations."
And Tal, on the Israeli side, we know, of course, the Prime Minister is going to be visiting the families for the first time in an hour or two. But other than that, it's been very, very political. The political spectrum in Israel, from the left and the right, are looking to Abu Mazen's comments and each dissecting it differently. The left is already calling, perhaps, we saw analysis in this past week maybe this is a chance to join forces between Abu Mazen and Netanyahu.
Yeah, well, the left, it wasn't dramatic. It was, as can be expected from the Israeli political system.
Nothing
Tzipi
to write home
and
about.
Yitzhak Herzog were welcoming Abbas, and Netanyahu was frowning and very cold and lukewarm, not very welcoming about it. But in the long run, this the Israeli response against Israel only to Abbas's speech and to Abbas's moderate approach only hurts Israel, and that's a problem, because it portrays Israel as a rejectionist, and when Abbas is making such courageous moves, that is a leadership move, what Ali has just described, and the Israeli leadership responds the way it does. Israel is the one that gets a bad face.
Shooting itself in the leg. Tal Shalev, thank you for joining us. Ali, thank you for joining us. You're going to be here afterwards. After the break, we're going to speak about the Islamic State in Iraq and the Levant, or ISIS. How did it become the richest terror organization in the world? And also, U.S. President Barack Obama is sending over 300 military advisors. Is this a change in plans? First, let's hear some more of the headlines. Good morning, and thank you for staying with us here at I-24 News Morning Edition. U.S. President Barack Obama, in an attempt to find a middle ground, announced that he would be deploying up to 300 military advisors to Iraq to help the embattled government fend off a wave of Sunni militants who have overrun large parts of the country. The U.S. has also warned the Shiite Prime Minister Maliki to suppress his country's sectarian fires, but the jihadist group ISIS has opened a risky new chapter in the West's reluctant engagement with Iraq. For more on the rise of the power of ISIS, we are rejoined in studio by I-24 News senior Middle East analyst Ali Waqid. Thank you for staying with us, Ali. Let's take a look at the following report, which recaps the latest in Iraq.
With Iraq descending into chaos following the recent conquests of several cities by the militant Sunni Islamist group, the Islamic State in Iraq and the Levant, world leaders are once again turning their focus to the war-torn nation. In the United States, administration officials have indicated Iraq might be better off with a new prime minister, as the incumbent Nouri al-Maliki has been unable to unite the various factions of Iraqi society in face of the threat. U.S. pressure on this point culminated in a series of phone calls in recent days between the Prime Minister and Vice President Joe Biden. Meanwhile, the U.S. is also facing a dilemma in regards to how it should react to the crisis.
Well, first of all, we have a request from the Iraqi government for air power.
You do?
We do. And
do you think it's in our national security interest to honor that request?
It is in our national security interest to counter ISIL wherever we find them.
On Wednesday, President Obama met with congressional leaders on Iraq, including top Republicans, who later told members of the press that the president indicated he didn't need permission from Congress for the actions being planned. Speaker of the House John Boehner refused to reveal his own position on the use of force in Iraq.
I'm looking for an overall strategy from the president.
But he had plenty to say about the possibility of U.S.-Iranian cooperation on Iraq, which has made headlines in recent days.
I can just imagine what our friends in the region, our allies, would be thinking by reaching out to Iran at a time when they continue to pay for terrorists and foster terrorism, not only in Syria, in Lebanon, but in Israel as well.
As the warring factions continue to fight each other in Iraq, it seems a political battle is unfolding in Washington over American involvement and responsibility for the crisis.
We are looking at the results of bad decisions that were made a long time ago.
I don't think we should assign the blame to the United States for this. I think we go back to who is responsible for this. ISIL, they invaded, but also this current government in Iraq has never fulfilled the commitments it made to bring a unity government together with the Sunnis, the Kurds, and the Shia.
A decision is likely to be made soon concerning the nature of U.S. intervention in Iraq, and it remains to be seen how this will affect the situation on the ground.
So, Ali, of course, the world has been looking very closely at the very fast unraveling situation in Iraq, and now that the United States has decided to send 300 military advisors, we are seeing maybe change in policy from the West, and it can actually become a full-on intervention.
No, I'm not sure that there is a full change. The Iraqi expected more direct, heavy and intensive military intervention of the West, basically of the United States. The experts are trying to intervene in order to stop the collapse of the Iraqi army more than to stop the progress of the ISIS. The situation in Iraq is very delicate and sensitive for the United States. The ISIS is the main enemy of the Iraqi government, but it is also at this region of North Iraq the main enemy of the Syrian regime. So the U.S. is trying to maneuver between willing to help the Iraqi government, but not supporting indirectly Bashar Assad. And of course, for the moment, the ISIS is gaining profit of this hesitation of the West and of the U.S.
But who do the Americans really have to work with? They've been talking to Maliki, asking him to, of course, suppress the sectarian violence. He can't really do much. And he, on the other hand, is asking for American help. Who do the Americans have on the ground that would work with them?
They have one address, and this is the Iraqi government and the Iraqi army. Now, there is a problem within the Iraqi army, which is less united than we thought before. Not all the Shiite groups in the Iraqi society are supporting al-Maliki politics. The Sunnite, of course, in the army is feeling in between their sectarian loyalties and their government and their army. So, and in between, we are seeing that the ISIS is progressing towards more and more cities and villages in Iraq, not only in the north at the borders with Syria, but at the center of Iraq, and they are challenging very significantly the Iraqi government. The ISIS is having profit of financial support that is coming from wealthy princes in the Arab Gulf, and this change is very impressive from a local terror organization that in 2004 went into confronting the Americans in Iraq to a national movement, and then turning from the Al-Qaeda branch to the Islamic State in Iraq, then to the Islamic State in Iraq and the Levant. We are talking about a movement, Yael, that carried out attacks in Iraq, is leading tough operations in the Syrian, carrying suicide bombing attacks in Lebanon. So this is an organization with a regional agenda. It's not reduced to Iraq, it's not reduced to Syria, but they have regional aspirations.
And of course, we're understanding, as you said correctly, that this is a very rich organization, a very wealthy organization. We're finding this out only this week. Was the West and, of course, the region maybe too late to underestimating, of course, ISIS until now? Were they just considered this local jihadist group, and now we're finding out that they're actually a very wealthy, strong, and a group with clear intention?
Well, the West understood from the very beginning that this is a very problematic organization, but when the background was getting rid of Bashar Assad, no matter what is the price, no matter what are the tools, the West decided to ignore the involvement of the ISIS in Syria. The ISIS gained huge military trainings and experience in the battlefield in Iraq. It is practicing now the experience it gains in Syria into Iraq, and we are seeing a very interesting phenomenon. They are not attacking military bases and disappearing. They are gaining territories. They are gaining territories. In the territories, they are putting their governors, meaning that we are here to stay. We are here to establish a regime that suits our agenda, and they make it very clear. We want an Islamic state in the released regions of North Iraq, of center of Iraq, with the borders in Syria, and in their forums they are talking about Lebanon and Jordan, which means that the appetite of these of this movement is not stopped in Syria and in Iraq.
How close are we to having them in Lebanon and Jordan? That, of course, will raise the security level here in Israel and in the Palestinian Authority.
In Lebanon, they are already acting as militias. They are supporting local militias, and the next scenario is that these local militias became the branch of the ISIS to show that this movement, and by the way, I want to remind that the first track that was published regarding the kidnapping of the 3 Israeli kids was from the ISIS Palestine branch,
right,
which means that the Jihadiyya Salafiyya is acting on the ground in Sinai, in the West Bank, in Gaza Strip, and of course in Lebanon. In Jordan, there are reduced because of the huge campaign of the Jordanian intelligence and of the Jordanian army, but Iraq here is a key test case. If Iraq falls into the hand of these these Salafists, the next station will be Jordan.
We'll be closer to our borders as well. Ali Waka, thank you for joining us this morning. And now we say hello and good morning to Anthony Grant, who joins us daily to discuss the news you may have missed while scanning the headlines. Anthony?
Good morning to you.
Before we set out for our lovely weekend.
Let's hope so. Anyway, talking about the Jerusalem Post.
Okay.
And this headline which grabbed my attention, Sarah Netanyahu,
okay,
who is the wife of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, has joined.
We know her.
Well, we know her, yes. She has joined the hashtag Bring Back Our Boys campaign for the 3 kidnapped Israeli teens, Eyal, Gilad, and Naftali.
Yeah.
So
it reminds me of someone else.
Of Michelle Obama.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, hashtag Bring Back Our Girls. It's I think at this point we're entering the 8th day with the missing kids. So more than a week, and again, it's dominating Israeli headlines, rightfully so. And this is it's a hopeful sign, and it's something that it is what it is. So,
right. So
hopefully it can make some small difference.
Because Michelle Obama had done it for the Nigerian girls,
yes,
the 290 Nigerian girls,
right,
there's a little criticism towards Sarah Netanyahu.
Is there? Oh.
Just a bit.
Just a bit. Anyway, her heart's in the right place. And anyway,
indeed.
But that's of course here in Israel and in the United States. A paper like the Wall Street Journal, of course, is all over the Iraqi situation. Here's a headline: U.S. signals Iraq's Maliki should go.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also have the Times of London, which had an article more or less at the same time, saying Iraq PM rebuffs pressure from Washington to step aside. I wanted to mention also earlier in the week we had an op-ed piece in the Wall Street Journal called "The Collapsing Obama Doctrine" written by Dick Cheney, former Vice President, and daughter Liz. So there's a lot of headlines reflecting this they're sending 300 military advisors, but there's a lot of saying, this person should step aside. Some people are saying Obama should step aside if you talk to Dick Cheney.
Right.
So again, it's as international as this crisis is, it's also very much being played out in Washington, D.C.
Indeed, and it's something that will not be going away, as we heard from Ali. It's just getting stronger and stronger, and the West will have to decide of a consolidated policy.
Yeah, absolutely. And also a little bit off the radar is some movement of people happening in Pakistan. The Express Tribune, which is an English language paper in Pakistan, reports that at least 113,000 people have fled North Waziristan since initial airstrikes in May. That's initial Pakistani airstrikes, at least we're led to believe. That's what it's mostly coming from. And this is basically, insurgents are kind of holed up in this area, and the Pakistani military is trying to get rid of them. And there's like a 3-day window for people that are living in the area to kind of clear the area. So these 113,000 people are on the move and basically displaced for right now. And that window of time is supposed to end on June 20th, and then the Army's going to begin a more intense phase of their operation.
Wow. All right. So keep our eyes on there.
Yeah, and just to mention, they started the offensive at the U.S.'s urging following the attack on the Karachi airport recently. So there's the U.S. is working closely with Pakistan on this.
Yeah.
South China Morning Post.
Your favorite paper.
I love this newspaper. And they say that a Chinese state councilor, has told Vietnam to stop hyping up oil rig tensions. This is that whole situation with China having sort of moved an oil rig into what are basically contested territorial waters. And China's kind of saying to Vietnam, don't worry about it. But the Vietnamese aren't, I think, taking that bait. They're basically.
This is not the first time that we're seeing this rift.
No, the rift seems to be growing actually,
right.
And just by saying don't hype it, I don't know if that's going to actually make Vietnam think that, oh yeah, China, do what you want and we'll be okay with it. So, and again, in a paper like South China Morning Post, they're kind of telling it like it is, as much as they can.
Remind yourselves what you're reading. Who's writing those words?
Exactly.
What else?
New York Daily News had a story about Philadelphia. A man in Philadelphia, 89-year-old guy. Yeah, his name is Johann Hans Breyer, and he was charged for his role as a Nazi guard at Auschwitz. Basically, there's a German arrest warrant out for him, and so I guess he's kind of pending extradition, but he's being held in Philadelphia.
And he's only been found now?
Wow.
And
this is a guy who's charged with aiding and abetting the killing of 216,000 Jewish men, women, and children while he was a guard at Auschwitz.
Has he made any kind of statements?
I don't know if he's made a specific statement, but he is said to be quite frail, as one could expect at 89, and he has a lawyer, of course. And
right.
Again, this is something that Germany should be commended, I think, for pursuing it. But if he's going to make the trip back to Germany for trial there,
we've had similar stories, and I think at least justice should be done no matter what age.
Absolutely. So we'll see what happens. And justice on a much different level.
Right.
LA Times reports on the controversial head of American Apparel.
Yeah, we've been following him.
Dov Charney. And he has actually been ousted. The company's board of directors said that the action grew out of an ongoing investigation into alleged misconduct. It may or may not have involved sort of behavior around women co-workers. But I think he's had some issues with that in the past.
Right.
When the LA Times called him for comment, he hung up.
So he doesn't want to talk about it.
Doesn't want to talk about it. No. And again,
got that one.
This is a very big international brand now. I think American Apparel.
It is, of course.
Yeah,
and
so
it has gone through quite its number of scandals itself.
It has.
Maybe because of Dov Charney.
Yeah. Well,
we'll get the answers once he's out.
Absolutely.
Anthony Grant, he'll be back.
Thank you.
Thank you. Coming up, World Refugee Day is observed today around the globe as hundreds of thousands receive this dubious title this week alone. Rising numbers there. We're going to hear some more of this morning's headlines, and we'll be back. Welcome back. It's still Friday, June 20th, 2014. This is the Morning Edition. I'm Yael Wisner-Levy. Thank you for staying with us. Today is World Refugee Day, observed annually since 2001 in order to draw attention to the millions of refugees and internally displaced persons forced to flee their homes following persecution, war, food insecurity, and more. From Syria to Sudan, Iraq to Afghanistan, the numbers are staggering, and little seems to have been accomplished. For more on the subject, we're joined in studio by Channel 1 Foreign Affairs correspondent Oren Nahari. Good morning, Oren.
Hello, good morning.
Let's take a look next at the following report.
As fighting in Iraq continues, the number of refugees and displaced persons in the war-torn country rises by 300,000 this week alone. According to the UN High Commission for Refugees, the startling number is added to the existing refugee population of Iraq, estimated at 500,000 since recent fighting began.
I'm telling you, there's nothing worse than being a refugee and being forced to leave everything behind. Everything I've ever had is gone.
Today is World Refugee Day, observed annually in order to raise awareness to the dire situation around the world. There are currently over 45 million known displaced persons across the globe. This figure includes about 15 million refugees, meaning people who fled to other countries, as well as almost 30 million people forcibly uprooted from their homes and displaced within their own countries. Close to 1 million asylum seekers complete this horrific account.
We were not rich, but nor were we poor. We used to live in a rented house. We had a good day-to-day life. We had breakfast together every morning. But now my family is torn apart.
While Refugee Day lacks actual power and is mostly symbolic, it does serve as a good reminder that behind those incomprehensible numbers lie real people with hopes and dreams for a better, quieter future.
We're also joined now over the phone from the Chulot Detention Center in southern Israel by Mutassim Ali, the director of the African Refugee Development Center. Mutassim, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
We're also joined via Skype from Geneva with the Senior Communications Officer for the UNHCR, Ariane Rumeri. Ariane, thank you also for joining us. Is Ariane with us?
Yes.
Okay, Ariane, I want to ask you, of course, the staggering numbers are growing, and they're perhaps, I read this morning, it's the largest number of refugees since the Second World War, meaning the trend is only increasing.
Absolutely. What those figures represent are a quantum leap in the number of forcibly displaced people worldwide. And it also represents a huge number of people that need help, whether that's in the hosting countries, particularly in neighboring countries to conflict, but also for the donor nations who need to support the humanitarian programs to support them. What it also represents is a dangerous deficit of peace, because what we know is that it's war and conflict which is driving this very huge increase.
Mm-hmm. And the numbers, of course, do differentiate between what is called a refugee, what is an internally displaced person, and what is an asylum seeker. Can you give us a little background on what each three category represents?
Sure. Well, an internally displaced person is somebody who has had to flee their homes for very similar reasons as a refugee, but they've still remained within the borders of their own country. And there's 33 million of those today in the world, which is the highest ever. A refugee is also somebody who's had to flee for war or persecution, but they've crossed an international border. Mm-hmm. And that's the definition. And an asylum seeker is somebody who has come to a country and put in a claim to be recognized as a refugee in that status in that country, but they're still waiting for a decision on their claim, and that decision is still pending. And we have over about 1.1 million of those at the moment.
Right. Ariane, stay with us. Mutassim, you're the director of the African Refugee Development Center in the southern Israel, in the Chulot Center. Part of the main problem here in Israel is many of these people have not received a status, either refugee or asylum seeker, or of course internally displaced person, which doesn't really represent the Chulot Center. Can you give us a status or an overview of what most people at the Chulot Center are? Are they refugees or are they asylum seekers, in your opinion?
None of us is refugee here in Chulot. All of us are asylum seekers. Mm-hmm. I mean, almost 70% of us here filed an asylum application about a year ago or a few months ago, and we got no result from the Interior. Oh, but some of us got rejection from the Interior Ministry. And I mean, here is just not a center, but it's a prison. I mean, the place that we are in is absolutely a prison that we have to sign in 3 times a day, and we cannot get out of this center at 10 o'clock in the evening. So, I mean, simply we can say we're here with no status.
And can you give us an overview, because of this non-status that Israel has not given you, what are the main issues that the people in the Chulot Center or prison, depending on who you're asking, what are they fleeing from?
I mean, people in Chulot, according to the government, are still considered as infiltrators, and Chulot itself is an exit point that we are not welcome in Israel anymore, and therefore we're waiting for deportation. And they're using different means to make their life miserable so that people can sign and leave the country. And most of the people here, all of them are Eritreans and Sudanese, and they cannot just go back to Eritrea or Sudan at all. Mm-hmm. And some of us have been forced to leave to the country, to Ethiopia, to Uganda and Rwanda. And just under, they were under pressure, and most of them they persecuted again. Right. Some of us fled to some other countries. By the way, I have some friends who went to Sudan, and then because they persecuted Sudan again, and then they left Sudan and left to other countries, and that's the situation for today.
And that is a situation that is, as we said, growing and not really being worked with within Israel. Mutassim Alita, thank you for joining us. And Ariane Rumuri in Geneva, thank you for joining us. In studio now, Oren Nahari. Of course, we look at the major conflicts in the past few years that have brought these staggering numbers. Most of these numbers are coming from Syria. But not only.
Yes, but not only. We have to remember that, look, we are now almost exactly in the 100th anniversary of the First World War. And after the First World War, there were millions, between Greece and Turkey alone, of refugees, asylum seekers, transfer, ethnic cleansing. And after the Second World War, of course, many millions. And in the breakup of colonialism. But there was a thought, there was a feeling that the world is going to a better place in the Cold War years, basically. And now in the last 20 years, from the tragedy of Yugoslavia and Rwanda, and later Iraq, twice, and Afghanistan and Syria and what have you, we are now looking at tens of millions of people, and in Africa, of course, the Great Lakes, etc., that are displaced, that are refugees, that are asylum seekers. They want to flee, they have to flee. Now, the problem on the other end, between the donor countries, the receiving countries, they are not there anymore. They see their systems breaking apart, their social networks system, their health system, their schooling system, all breaking up. They don't have the money anymore. Russia don't donate a ruble, China don't donate one single yuan, etc. So it falls on the West. And the West receives, let's say Germany, receives close to 500,000 refugees from Syria and Iraq, and they say, okay, if we'll take a phrase that is horribly familiar to us, the boat is full. That it was said, to the Jews right before the Holocaust. So they see it, and of course, the basic truth is nobody wants these people. They don't want them. Then the countries that can afford to look the other way, let's say Australia, which is far, the United States, which is far, they try to do their best to look the other way and receive the minimum that they can. And it's a global problem, but there is no global solution to it.
Which is exactly my next, almost philosophical question. We ended the Second World War with this idea that the nations would come together and work towards solving global problems, the United Nations and so forth. Does this World Refugee Day, where we see 50 million refugees, half of them of which are children, show the failure of such a system?
First of all, if there was such a notion, it broke up very, very quickly in 1946. Winston Churchill gave the famous Iron Curtain speech, and we see the power of the world working together on any problem, from global warming to refugees to whatever have you. So yes, there is a problem, and the problem is that these refugees are the unwanted. They are the bottom of the human race, so to speak, not as people, not by their education, not by anything, but by their color. The world is still bigot, all countries, and by their faith most of the time. And when they flee, let's say people who are Sunni, who flee the Shiite persecution or vice versa, people in Europe know that they bring problem. If they come from ex-country, ex-Yugoslav, some of them formed, not all of them, of course, tiny minority, but still that's the stigma of all kinds of crime cartels and etc. So there is a huge problem. And now countries in Europe see that the people are storming the gates. Literally, in Spain, they got 2 towns in Morocco soil, Ceuta and Melilla, and the people, the asylum seekers, the refugees, they storm the gates, they enter, and once they enter, they cannot be thrown out again. So the countries that are the port of origin, Spain, Italy, on the beaches of the Mediterranean, they are failing. They are
susceptible to.
They can't hold them.
Which are the top refugee hosting countries today? It used to be other countries, as we said. Now it's going to the weaker countries.
Yes, but not only. The countries that still accept, legally, not the countries that the people are sneaking in, which is again Spain, Italy, France, and others. And they all of them try to, in Europe, to go to Germany, which is the top country receiving. And in percentage, I would say that it was Germany, Sweden, Canada doing a lot, but still we are talking about a drop in the bucket.
Okay, Channel 1 Foreign Affairs editor Oren Nahari, thank you for joining us. We're now joined by the journalist and the environment defender and the cute animal video bringer, Netta Chituv. You have good news for us.
Yes, only good news today.
Good. We need some good news.
Yeah, let's start with really nice footage of naked people riding their bike.
There you go. Very nice news.
So this week was the annual World Naked Bike Ride, and it happens in 35 cities around the world. As you can see, this is in London. They just want to raise awareness to this nice vehicle.
I like to seeing the bystanders walking by as if nothing's happening.
Yeah, very indifferent.
Nobody's looking.
Yeah, so they want to raise awareness to bicycle and to the environment, and they've found out this really nice way to do it, and it happened all over the world.
They're raising awareness for a lot of other things too while they do it naked,
Yes, and everybody is welcome to join them. You don't have to be naked if you don't want to, but you're very welcome to. And as you see,
and it's legal.
Yeah,
no one says anything.
Yeah, no one arrests them. Nothing. Yeah.
Imagine it in Tel Aviv. I'm not so sure it would go so well.
Yes, and from naked people riding their bike, we're going to tree huggers, but literally tree huggers. In Nepal, they just broke the world record of people hugging trees. 2,000 people hugged trees, as you can see, in the forest of Gokama, which is in the outskirts of Kathmandu.
Okay.
And these are students, as you can see, young people, professors in university, lawmakers. Everybody came to break the world record. And there was traditional music in the background.
Nice. Who was it organized by?
By an environmental group, an organization over there, and it was also for the World Environment Day.
Nice, because tree hugging has such a stigma to it, But now when
it's
you see
really nice.
young
Have
kids,
you tried it once?
I should try it.
It's really nice. You feel, you feel something.
Empowered.
Yes, exactly. And the last record was in 2013 in the U.S., where 936 people hugged trees. So here we have 2,000.
Nice, very nice.
Yes.
What else?
This is a really cute story. Yes, these are 1,600 panda from Paper Match, and they are traveling all over the world. They were in Paris, Berlin. Here they arrived to Hong Kong, and they are, decorating the airport or a tourist site, and it's also to raise awareness to the panda endangered.
Which is endangered completely.
Yeah, completely. Almost extinct. There are 1,600 in nature. That's why they chose this number.
Wow.
And it's sponsored by WWF, the organization, who panda is their logo, is their symbol. They're really sweet. It's a French sculptor who
and they're traveling the world?
them. Yeah, they're traveling the world.
Tell them to come here.
Yes, please come. And we're moving on to handsome men, Beckham and Prince William, who did this mutual press conference for Prince William's organization, United for Wildlife. He's really into wildlife.
Right, as is his father.
Yes.
They're very big on the environment.
Yeah, they're doing a lot, and Beckham, of course, is his friend, so he asked him to join, and they are signing shirts there, and you can buy these T-shirts and a lot of money, and it will help the wildlife. And a statement for this press conference is whose side are you are? Like, choose a side. Are you for the wildlife or are you for the money? All the poachers and everybody.
Nice. So
and it's nice how they use football and sports and everything they can for their cause.
Indeed. And the money goes to
the organization. Yeah, United for Wildlife. This is the organization. And we love both
really
of
quickly, one last thing.
Highline celebrates 5 years.
Ooh.
Have you been there?
Yeah, of course.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Really, it's one of the best urban projects in the world. I think it took 10 years to materialize, and now they're celebrating 5 years. There are more tourists in the Highline than in the Statue of Liberty.
I would go there. There's great food below.
Yes.
You just take a coffee and sit and look at the nice skyline. Netta Chituv, thank you for joining us. Headlines. Good morning, and thank you for staying with us. We now get to say hello and good morning once again to Anthony Grant, who is here, as always, with what's hot on the web.
Well,
what's hot?
The Game of Thrones is so hot these days.
Yeah.
And I know, no big.
No, I know it's huge. I'm just
there.
like the only person in the planet Earth that
is not into.
Yeah.
No, me too.
I missed that.
Yeah, but you know what makes it interesting for me is when it mashes up with the Brady Bunch.
Oh.
Okay. Did you see Will Wheaton's?
You're so vintage. You're like vintage.
No, vintage Brady. I don't know, but this is new. This is now. Let's have a listen.
Here's the story of a lovely lady who was bringing up 3 kids, one a pest. He had hair of gold, like his uncle, because of incest. Here's the story of a clan named Stark. Ned was noble, so he died pretty quick. And there's one man named Theon Greyjoy. They cut off his dick. Till the one day when these ladies met these fellows, and they slipped each other very graphic bones, and this group must somehow murder families.
So
It's
tasteful,
good, clean, fun.
so tasteful
It's
for the
good.
morning.
Yeah,
And even if
it's
you're not
good.
a Game of Thrones fan, I understand. Now I understand the cast perfectly.
Yeah, well, the whole thing here is that with the intro to Game of Thrones, it shows this, really cool effects, but doesn't really talk much about the people. And so now you know more about the people.
Yeah. Well, I know everything there is to know about the people.
No, there's always more. Let's
Nice.
hope for another mashup. Back in New York, Jen Selter is back in the news because
Okay.
I think she has a column now in the New York Post. This is the person whose prominent derriere earned her like 30 gajillion Instagram followers.
Right.
And now she's basically giving pointers to look like her.
Okay.
So it's physical fitness overdrive.
I could do that.
Elevated lunges, donkey
oh.
kicks,
Uh-huh.
walking backward on a treadmill.
Walking backward on a treadmill.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
Okay, so
I'm trying
that
to imagine that one.
yeah, well, they have a picture of it in her column. And the amazing thing about this is, that she basically, I think she dropped out of college to pursue her career as a physical
Butt
fitness.
model? Oh.
Basically, yeah. But it's like the power of Instagram and social media, because without that, she would just be.
No, she became a huge brand.
Yeah.
She's branding her butt.
Did you? Yes, she is.
That is exactly what she's doing.
Quite successfully.
Well,
and it's very much a New York story, and so is the latest wrinkle with the Long Island medium. Now you know about the Long
No.
Island medium.
Long Island?
Yeah,
No, I don't. What is
Teresa
it?
Caputo. She has that show on TLC where she basically spirits out information from people.
Okay.
She's basically a freak, but a lot of people love her. I think
Okay.
we have a quick clip so we can actually see how her technique.
All right, maybe this will explain.
Yeah.
Today I'm meeting Lisa and Matt at a restaurant on Long Island. As usual, all I know is their name and their phone number. The rest is up to Spirit. Hi, how are you?
I get it.
You
I
get
get it. Yeah. Well,
I mean, she.
you don't have to. No need to delve into that one.
Right. Well, she does delve, and apparently a lot of people know she's booked up like 3 years in advance for her spirit divination.
Or so she says.
So she says.
Yeah.
But now her father is saying that she and her husband, who figures prominently on the show, are having some marital issues, but they may or may not be heading for a split. And also she's got some scandals going on because people are accusing her of doing like cold readings and eavesdropping to get those camera perfect moments when she just automatically seems to guess exactly what a person's fate is and that sort of thing.
You couldn't guess that one?
I thought she was like for reals all the way.
Really?
I've watched a couple episodes.
Would you go to her for...
If I saw her like at a bar mitzvah, like doing entertainment, I would sign up and do it for a few minutes.
A bar mitzvah, yeah.
Yeah, weddings.
Out on Long Island.
Out in Long Island, yeah. Robert Pattinson made a few ruffles by saying that he used to befriend prostitutes when he moved to LA, I guess from the UK.
Okay.
He said that they were some of his best friends. Not frequenting them, but befriending them.
Well, what's wrong with that?
Nothing. I mean, actually, I think maybe it helped him to develop his crafts, different stories, different walks of life.
Indeed.
And I think this was before he hit it big with Twilight.
Right, and then
So-
broke up big with Kristen Stewart.
Yeah, are they back on again?
No.
Or is that off?
I think that's off.
Okay, well, he's got a new movie coming up called The Rover, so this came in the context of some promo for that. Meatless bacon.
Okay,
Yeah, we are in the
I'm
morning
happy
show.
about that.
Yeah, in Miami. Coconut bacon is the thing. Salty, smoky, pig-free.
Nice. It'll go well here in Israel. Anyone keeping kosher, that's just for you.
Exactly. And apparently it tastes almost like bacon. It's good for you too. And, so I don't have
Is
any.
it healthy?
I think so. I mean, coconut, it's a vegetable, right?
Yeah.
Has to be good for you. But speaking of restaurants, Telegraph ran a story on the world's most expensive restaurant, which is
it
now.
which one is it? The most expensive had just closed, right? So now which one is it?
It's Sublimotion, and it's Chef Paco Roncero's new place in Ibiza.
In Ibiza, that's the most expensive?
Yes, according to this story. And we're talking about $2,000 per person for dinner. But for that price, you get self-mixing cocktails. All you have to do is think about it.
What a bargain.
I know.
You get those self-mixing cocktails.
You get a self-mixing Bloody Mary. I don't know how they do it, but you get nitrogenized olive oil and a white chocolate foie gras donut.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And you get to dine communally with people who can afford $2,000 for dinner.
Of course.
It's Bianca Jagger, I don't know who's there, or Mick Jagger. Very sort of posh set there.
Yeah.
And 360-degree video projections. And the food? I don't know.
Mediocre.
I haven't tried it yet, but it's on my it's on the
Mediocre,
list.
yeah, but to pay $2,000 to mix your own cocktails,
the chef actually has got 2 Michelin stars, so it's not like it's not total gimmickry. So he is investing.
Yeah, but $2,000? Think of what you can buy with $2,000.
Have you been to Ibiza?
Think of what Kim Kardashian can do with $2,000.
Yeah, this is true. But I think that if it's like one of those once-in-a-lifetime experiences,
All right, so send yourself there. Tell us how it was. Instagram it.
I would love to. I mean, I'll give you the coconut bacon.
Thank you. I will sit outside and wait for you.
I'll go for the self-mixing
eating the coconut
cocktail.
bacon, popping the coconut bacon.
And I'll be popping the white chocolate foie gras donut.
Go for it.
Anyway, on a Twitter, Pope Francis, who is still
your favorite.
He's still only following himself. I don't know how he does it, but that's what he does.
He's still only following himself.
Anyway, he says there's never a reason to lose hope, and I think that I wanted to mention that because I think as we're entering it's been a week now since we have these 3 kidnapped Israeli boys, the Pope. Let's hope for more messages like this from him and other politicians.
Indeed. Messages of our hope are always good. Anthony Grant, thank you for joining us. And now we welcome the Sport Magazine host, Jonathan Regev, here with the latest World Cup news, the winners, the losers, and everyone in between.
Morning, Yael.
Morning.
So, winners, you know what? Before we speak about specific games, winners are the South Americans. Check this out, Yael. 10 games South American teams have played so far. 7 wins, 2 draws, 1 loss. You speak about home court advantage.
Indeed.
This is the case. And it's not only Brazil who are the hosts and Argentina who are also, the big star that have all these fans coming in because it's close by. Chile, Colombia, Uruguay that we saw yesterday. We have tens of thousands of fans flocking into Brazil, and these teams succeed. Speak about Uruguay, first game against Costa Rica, they were mediocre. Yesterday against England, they were stellar. What's the difference? One player, Luis Suarez. He was brilliant this past season in the Premier League, playing in England for Liverpool. He was the top goal scorer. Then he came in yesterday after not playing in the first game. He was injured. He scored twice against some of his teammates playing in the English team. Uruguay beat England 2-1. Uruguay still not clear whether they will go or not because they have that first loss that they dragged from the first game. But England will probably again not get very far in this World Cup.
Yeah. Although, if you go to London during the World Cup, they're sure they're on top of the world.
Every time. This time, though, they tried a different kind. They attacked it in a different way.
Right.
They said, instead of being so optimistic at the beginning just to be disappointed at the end, let's try another thing. Let's be pessimistic at the beginning, and then let's see what happens. Well, it did not work. Probably. Most chances are England will be out right after the group phase. We have to say, in their defense, in both games against Italy and against Uruguay, England played quite well.
But Suarez is going to have a hard time going back to Liverpool. He's going to be not a persona non grata.
Yes, but you know what? Luis Suarez is used to being persona non grata. He's one of those players that you love him if he's in your side, you love him, and then if he's against you, you just hate him. He's not a bit violent. He has a biting incident, the hand incident. But he's used to that, and you know what? He'll get back to Liverpool. I'll say something about football fans, people like myself, our memory is very short.
Yeah.
Very short. As soon as he scores the first goal for Liverpool, they'll forget everything he did
Remind
against
Anthony
England.
of the biting incident, because I heard Anthony making some noises over
Who
there.
bit who?
It sounds like your good web headline.
Luis Suarez missed the first, I think it was 7 games this season in the Premier League because at the end of the previous season, he bit a player from another team. Was that the first time he did it? Nah, he had that.
He has a problem.
It was the second time. It was the second time that he had that incident. And then again, if you support, if you're a fan of a team that this guy plays for, you just love his fighting spirit. He stopped in the previous World Cup. He stopped a goal against Uruguay with his hand, got a red card, and then the penalty was missed by the other team. Basically, he puts back then Uruguay into the semifinals, and then he just comes in and transforms
and bites. Hopefully he doesn't have braces.
That's the least of his problems.
Right. What's going to happen when he loses his teeth when he's 90-something?
Yeah, no biting.
No biting.
Stop biting.
So,
All right.
if you're from Uruguay, believe me, you just love Luis Suarez today. England...
It's not the top of its game.
England is probably.
Don't worry, they're going to be still hitting the pubs, those fans.
Yeah.
Not to worry about
Drink
them.
if you're happy, drink if you're sad.
Exactly.
Drink is the motive.
Colombia, Ivory Coast.
Yeah, Colombia, Ivory Coast, the 2 leading teams in Group C, probably the 2 teams that will advance to the second phase. Colombia won 2-1. We spoke about the success of the South American teams, just like Chile the previous night, that their fans. All these tens of thousands of fans coming from Chile. Same story with Colombia. That's not very far from Brazil. A lot of fans doing noise, and Colombia is almost certain to be qualifying to the second round. The third game last night, not one to write home about. Japan and Greece had a goalless draw. Probably these 2 teams will finish their way right after the first round.
The first round. And tonight, what are we looking towards?
The second match in Group D, the Uruguay-England group. The second match we'll play tonight. That is Italy against Costa Rica. Those 2 teams won their first match.
Right.
And then Group E gets going with a big game between Switzerland and France. These 2 neighbors. They tied in the 2006 World Cup. Their game ended in a goalless draw. France looked very, very impressive in their first match, being Honduras 3-0. Only a lot of people said that they were impressive because their opponent was very weak. Tonight, tonight is their big test. Switzerland is more impressive than Honduras, and will surely give the French a harder time. We'll have to see if France is again that impressive, and if they are, then they're going to place themselves.
The Swiss fans are not that loud as the French fans, definitely.
No, but there are not a lot of French fans and not a lot of Swiss fans in Brazil. It's a long travel. If you speak about fans, then it's the South American ones making noise. But France, as long as there are no social problems within the team, then they're always very strong. Their squad is very impressive. What has bothered them in 2010, 2002, for example, is the social problems within the team, the locker room, a lot of fighting between.
But no biting.
No, that's where Suarez.
That hamster, that lady, that Swiss hamster is predicting a Swiss win over the
right.
French. Lady
You heard
Shiva.
about this Swiss
I
hamster.
think if you're Swiss something, you're predicting a Swiss win, and if you're a French turtle, hamster, mouse, you name it.
Another big game is Ecuador-Honduras, which is definitely not going to be a quiet one. I mean, these are 2 countries that are pretty close geographically and pretty rowdy fans.
And again, Ecuador is not very far from Brazil, and they're a country that does not make it a lot to the World Cup. Therefore, a lot of fans made the travel also from Quito, from Guayaquil to Brazil. They were a bit unlucky not to get any points in their first match. Ecuador was leading their game against Switzerland, but then they conceded 2 goals, the last one in stoppage time. They have to win. Whoever loses tonight will be out of the World Cup, so they have to win. Although we have to say that the 2 strong teams in this group, Group E, they seem to be France and Switzerland. They will probably be the ones qualifying. But again, Honduras and Ecuador, they'll fight out tonight. Whoever wins will keep their chances.
Who has already been kicked out, or we haven't had a team?
One team.
Okay.
Only one team is for surely out. That's the last team. The last team who was left standing in South Africa. That is Spain, the world champions from 2010.
Yeah, well, we heard about they're playing.
No team ever lost. There are former world champions that lost after the first round, but it never happened right after the first 2 games. It took 3 games at least. Spain. It's not only the 2 losses. They have a terrible goal difference. They scored only 1 goal. They conceded 7. They look terrible. they're going home. If I were a Spanish,
if anyone will take them home, not sure.
There's a new king, so he has to. How did that king decided to do the new coronation?
Bad timing.
Look at the calendar, man. You're a king. Tell your
bad timing.
Tell the people around you to look at the
You'll support
no
Spain
king.
just to give them some, extra
I'll support,
kind of boost.
I'll go to that restaurant in Ibiza and support their
there
economy.
See?
Give them a boost.
Everyone has
That is
their
why that
connection.
restaurant is so expensive.
All the money went to the restaurants and not to training the team to actually, put in a goal.
Okay, what better way to console yourself with a white chocolate foie gras donut
donuts.
it was?
Yeah,
That's a good way to console yourself after losing.
A little red wine,
Jonathan
too.
Regev, you have a live show today, of course,
Yes.
summing up yesterday and looking towards today.
Of course, 3:40 Jerusalem time, 2:40 Central European time. Watch us.
We will be watching. Anthony Grant, thank you also. That's it for this morning. Visit us on the web, i24news.tv, or on our Facebook page. Don't forget to join us again on Monday. It's the weekend. To start your day every day, have a great weekend.